Hey everyone, my name's Sebastian. I'd like to thank you for coming to tonight's worship, and I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the new interim youth director here at Kinship, and since we've had an election recently, I'd also like to introduce the other members. Our president, Floyd, our secretary, Jackie Haggerty, our director of church relations is Stephen Chavez, and our director of women's interests is Jackie Johnson. Please welcome them, and they will be serving on our team for the next 2 years and hopefully beyond that. Now I'd like to introduce and welcome our speaker for tonight, the loud, the big, and the former evangelical drag queen, Flamey Grant, who will be touching on the subject, when to leave the church. I hope you enjoy. Thanks.
Hello there, beautiful people of Kinship. I'm absolutely delighted to have this virtual hangout with you today. Thank you so much for having me. I also want to commend you for doing the brave thing and spending some time with a big, loud, former evangelical drag queen. Because here's the tea, honey. I am not for the faint of heart. No sir, no ma'am, no NB's name's Sam. That's right, you're hanging out with Flamey Grant today, and I hope to leave you feeling a little shook, a lot of shimmery, and most of all, entirely shameless. That's the journey I'm inviting you on in our time together, and I hope you'll come along for the ride, loves. Okay, a teeny tiny little bit about me. I was a Bible Belt baby, and for the first 25 or so years of my life, you could not find a more dedicated, fundamentalist, conservative, straight-acting evangelical east of the Mississippi. I literally meddled in the sport of righteousness. My Christian high school bestowed upon me the highest honor we had, the Citizenship Award, given for, and I quote, dependability, cooperation, sincerity, and spiritual maturity. Get into it, okay? Girl, I was the golden child of my little community in the Appalachian Mountains. I started out as the kid who was singing special music on Sunday mornings and serving as student body chaplain in my Christian high school. And I bloomed into the young adult who was leading worship and planting churches. And girl, not to brag, but the Christians wanted me on their team, okay? If Christianity was a team challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race, I was getting picked first because those old queens knew I was gonna help them win, all right? Y'all know the passage in 2 Corinthians where Paul boasts for like 2 whole columns about how he's the best Christian, suffered the most, preached the most, doing the most for the Prince of Peace, mighty God, Holy One. I don't think it's too much to say that I was the Apostle Paul of evangelicalism in Western North Carolina. And, very like the Apostle Paul, I was excessively self-righteous and just a tad arrogant about it. Being the golden boy consumed my identity, and why not? My entire upbringing had been focused on one goal, to not sin. Sin was the trap that would snatch me the second I ceased to be vigilant. On the highway of life, sin was the roadside distraction, it was the potholes coming at me fast, it was the oil leak in my engine, and the deer I had to swerve to miss, and the bad drivers cutting me off, and holy Miriam and Moses, sin was everywhere. But that's okay, because I knew exactly how to stay in the good graces of God and the church and my family. I mean, they gave me a roadmap. They engraved it right on my own Citizenship Award. Dependability, cooperation, sincerity, spiritual maturity. You know, devoid of any context, those 4 things sound really great, really admirable. They sound like things you might want to aspire to, things you'd even engrave on an award and give to your best people. They sound nice. The thing is, there's a lot of context, a lot of conditions, a lot of ambiguity, and a lot of misinformation, and a lot of judgment. For me, the context was that ever-present oppressive fear and pressure of sin. In order to belong and in order to excel and be the golden child, you better be blameless. And in my community, there was no greater sin than being gay. As someone who was once the golden boy and now just watches the Golden Girls, my fall from grace came when I could no longer ignore, deny, or hide my queerness. Most of you, I'm sure, know exactly what that feels like. It turns out, at least in my community, no amount of dependability, cooperation, sincerity, or spiritual maturity can make up for being gay. You go from golden child to hellbound sinner like that. And suddenly, you're on the receiving end of all the consequences of sin. We're taught the wages of sin is death, and it's not that far off. Coming out in a place where queerness is sin can mean the end of community and relationships and all of your emotional support and sometimes even your place to live. It can mean getting kicked out, ignored, or simply forgotten. It can mean no more opportunities to serve, create, lead, or even participate in the only community you know, and it certainly can mean you're no longer safe. When you go through something like this, the ideas of being dependable, cooperative, sincere, and spiritually mature, they no longer seem quite as admirable. For me now, when I look back and I think about why I was given that award and why I strived so hard to be the Apostle Paul, it all seems downright sinister now. It feels like I was being gaslit from the moment I could understand language. Be dependable. Be the one we can rely on. Be the one who shows up, who sacrifices, who does what needs to be done. Don't give us reason to question your commitment, your dedication, your loyalty. Prove yourself to be dependable over and over and over again. Be cooperative. Be the one who agrees with us. Be the one who accepts the status quo, the one who affirms our traditions, the one who conforms. Don't make waves or ask questions or upset the balance. Prove yourself to be cooperative over and over and over again. Be sincere. Be earnest about this thing. Don't be the one who fakes it, the one who plays games with God, the one with dirty little secrets. Don't give us reason to question your credibility, your authenticity, your conviction. Prove yourself to be sincere over and over and over again. And baby, be spiritually mature. Be able to answer every question with the Bible. Be able to quote it from memory. Be the one with insight, the one with knowledge, and most importantly, the one with the right answers. Don't give us reason to question your faith, your love for God, or your conviction. Prove yourself to be spiritually mature over and over and over again. They honored me with a plaque called the Citizenship Award, a token I could hang on my wall that clearly communicated my place in the family. I was a citizen. I belonged. Until I didn't. I'm going to take a sidebar here to really quickly acknowledge what should, at this point in human history, be the very commonly accepted baseline from which the entire world operates, but unfortunately, still isn't. And that is to say, queerness is not sin. Identifying as LGBTQ+ does not condemn you. Your gender identity and expression are not forbidden. There are lots of folks who've done the work to expose the manipulative lies that the church has perpetuated about queerness. And I know you all have encountered many of these voices already, like my friend Colby Martin, whose book Unclobber, the SDA Kinship group is going through right now, if I'm not mistaken. So, if that's still a lingering question for anyone listening today, I'll just point you to the myriad resources out there that make the extremely unassailable case that queerness is not sin. Okay? Now that that's cleared up, this is part of so many of our stories. As LGBTQ+ people of faith, we so often come to a crossroads where our identity, our sexuality, our gender, they come up against the notion or the doctrine of sin, and it forces a decision. Do we conform? Do we rebel? Do we reconcile? Do we stay or go or do a little of both? Like, I don't know, for instance, being an unapologetically heathen drag queen who likes to do a little preaching on the side every now and then. Crazier things have happened. Most of us have felt that tension or struggled with how to navigate our community after coming out. And it is Auntie Flamey's belief that at the end of the day, the decision to stay, leave, or other isn't a right or wrong kind of decision. I think there's a reasonable case to be made whichever way you choose to go. Sometimes coming out helps to reveal to us just how conditional and toxic our community is. When we realize that we don't owe allegiance to a specific church or even to family members who repeatedly do harm by forcing conformity and disguising it as love or truth, it just might be time to get out. Sometimes coming out even helps us formulate or sharpen our own personal beliefs. And we might discover that, hey, I don't actually even believe this stuff anymore. No longer identifying as a believer is a perfectly sensible reason to part ways with a faith community. And sometimes coming out gives us the opportunity to find a new community altogether. Creating your own chosen family is almost a rite of passage as an LGBTQ plus person in the world, and so many of us find a deeper spirituality and a community outside of church walls. So my point is this: the choice to leave is valid. It's a hard choice to make, and it can be absolutely heart-wrenching to cut ties with a community that raised you and that you still love. But there is the potential for a beautiful life on the other side of that decision. And for the ones who decide to stay, it can be equally painful. It's no small feat to stand for your own dignity and to fight for your place in a community that believes, as a lot of my own family members do, that you're in open rebellion against God. One of my favorite learning experiences around this idea happened one night in a small group for queer Christians that I landed at several years ago. It's an affirming church, but several folks in this small group still maintained relationships with their non-affirming families and church communities that raised them. So the leader asked the question, how do you reconcile your own personal faith and sexuality? Remember earlier how I said I can be just as self-righteous as the Apostle Paul? Case in point. I gladly threw up my hand to be the first to answer the question, and I said, easy. I don't have to reconcile my faith and my sexuality because I abandoned my faith when it abandoned me. Boom. That's right. I said it. A perfectly reasonable response to toxic religion. I folded my arms and I waited for the rest of the group to share their answers, but I wasn't really prepared for what happened next. One by one, the rest of the people in the room shared why they did the work of reconciling faith and sexuality and why they chose to stay connected to their non-affirming communities. And they all had a similar reason. One girl said it this way: part of why I choose to stay is that I'm the only person in that community right now who is advocating to make space for queerness. If I were to leave it, it would create a vacuum, a void, and I know that the people most likely to fill it would be the ones who condemn us. As long as I'm still there, there's a chance that I can help change a few minds by living openly as both a Christian and a queer person. And at the very least, any other LGBTQ plus kids who are struggling in silence or afraid to come out can know there's at least one person in their church that they can talk to about it. Girl, I have never been humbled faster. And it's because I felt this to be true in my own experiences, right? We can argue on the internet until our fingers bleed and write books and make videos about the need for LGBTQ plus inclusion in the church, but the most powerful way we have to change hearts and minds is through relationships. It's not easy, and I would argue it's not even our obligation to stick around and endure the judgment and condescension that often comes when you're friends with non-affirming people. But if you feel capable of being that person, and if you feel compelled to stand up on behalf of other queer people in your community, my point is, the choice to stay is also valid. There is potential for beautiful change on the other side of that decision. So if you decide to go, I hope you can rest in knowing that that is the right decision. And if you decide to stay, I hope you feel reassured in knowing that you have made the right decision. And if you're watching today and thinking, my God, this very unhelpful queen just argued both sides and gave me nothing to inform my own decision, well, hold on, baby. I have one more option to propose. You know, I've seen some friends walk away from the church and never look back. And they are now thriving and glowing and living their best life. It's freaking inspiring. But baby, every time I walk away, and I have tried my damnedest on several occasions, something always seems to pull me back. I've seen other friends dig their heels in, hunker down, link arms with other affirming Christians, and fight the good fight for LGBTQ plus inclusion in the church. And it's freaking inspiring. But when I've decided to settle in and be the gay Christian who's working to build bridges, I'm almost immediately exhausted and overwhelmed at the expectations and arguments of a faith I no longer personally believe in. For better or worse, the church raised me. Almost more than my own family did, and so much of it is in my bones. I find it unnerving and unsettling to try and navigate life without the anchor of a spiritual community. I still long to see the entire church become a place that learns to embrace and celebrate its queer community. And I feel like I have something to offer for that work. Even my drag has become a way for me to address the injustices I've experienced in evangelicalism, while also helping me be a space maker for people who haven't found a spiritual home yet. Early on in life, I thought I was called to be a pastor or a preacher. Discovering Flamey helped me realize that dream wasn't necessarily dead. Instead of pastoring a congregation, I would learn to mother people in makeup. These are the ways that church still matters to me. And at the same time, my personal spirituality doesn't require or even want the creeds or doctrines of Christianity. I feel best identifying as a heathen. While I respect others' belief in the Bible, in Christ, in resurrection, these things aren't a part of how I practice faith as an adult. Personally, I praise intuition. I worship curiosity. I seek knowledge from the humans around me, and I believe in the universal divine connectedness of everything. So, I hate to leave, but I can't stay. So here's where I've landed, at least for now. And I reserve the right to make new decisions in the future that I'm sure will still be valid. As for me, I am in, not of, the church. Look, if a Christian's job is to be in but not of the world, I see no reason why a heathen can't strive to be in and not of the church. It's my native tongue, but I've picked up a few new languages along the way. It will always be my country of birth, but I'm going for more of a dual residency situation. It raised me, but I'll take over the inner child work from here on out. Thank you very much. A lot of folks might think this makes me wishy-washy, non-committal, like I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too. They see no reason to take me seriously, and honestly, who could blame them? I'm wearing a wig and clown makeup, okay? But that doesn't bother me. If there's one thing I've learned about people that give out citizenship awards like their merit badges and then take them away just as easily, it's that they don't actually understand belonging at all. They've substituted conformity for belonging, and they wield sin and fear and hell as tools to keep us all in line. But the power to belong, that's always been our own. You belong. I belong. And we are all good, worthy, and loved. Full stop. You're in, baby, even if you're not of. So, no more citizenship awards for this queen. Actually, I think you all are onto something. Kinship. Not citizenship, kinship, that chosen family life. I love it. I love it. I love what you're doing. Keep up the good work. And remember, loves, your decision is valid.
Thank you so much, Flamey Grant, for sharing that relevant and pertinent message with us this evening. Hi, my name is Floyd, and I'm president of Seventh-day Adventist Kinship International. This Friday night program happens on the first Friday night of each month, and we're thankful that you joined us this evening, and would like to invite you to join us each first Friday night of the month for this. Seventh-day Adventist Kinship International is a safe and welcoming community for LGBTQIA plus Seventh-day Adventists, current and former. And if this is the first time that you've heard of us, please go to our website, sdakinship.org, and check out more information about us. Or if you'd like to communicate with us, please send me an email, info@sdakinship.org, and I'll be happy to send you an email. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, and hope to see you again soon.